Every 4 years, American citizens come to vote for president as one of their most important rights. Today, one of the most powerful communicated ways the country gets to know the candidates well is through presidential debates. In these debates, presidential candidates gather in public to discuss new political problems and implement ideas about the country's well-being. But where did these televised debates get started? The 1960 first televised presidential debates. The first televised presidential debate was between John F. Kennedy and Richard Nixon in the studios of CBS's WBBM-TV. Each candidate communicated their beliefs to voters through a variety of different technologies ranging from radios to televisions. John F. Kennedy eventually won the election through his tactical usage of technologies that readily influenced the public towards his side. One of the key debates in American history was between the infamous Democratic Stephen Douglas and Republican Abraham Lincoln regarding the moral institution and spread of slavery in the southern states. These debates were quite structured and formal than the ones of today. The second presidential debate on November 2, 1948, was between Harry Truman and Thomas Dewey. The debate was successfully communicated to the American people thanks to the newly invented radio, which allowed this debate to reach over 40 million Americans. With this, citizens received news of the candidates in newspapers, magazines, and other communicated ways. Meanwhile, television was growing at a rapid pace. In the 1890s, the first moving picture was invented, and in 1937, CBS became the first major news channel. But at that point, there was a major breakthrough in politics and technology: a televised debate. In 1960, many American citizens owned a TV, and more people were buying them. This showed many television networks that a debate on TV would be a great way to bring politics into many homes across the nation. Who were the candidates? Richard M. Nixon was an easy choice at the 1960 Republican Convention because of his experience as vice president under President Dwight D. Eisenhower for 8 whole years. On the other hand, Democratic candidate John F. Kennedy was 43 years old at the time. Kennedy was formerly a senator of Massachusetts and was considered to be somewhat inexperienced. However, Kennedy selected Lyndon B. Johnson as his vice president so that he could become more experienced and gain votes. When Kennedy challenged Nixon to 4 debates, the two decided to debate without any script or notes on live television to support them. In a major political event like a debate, this was never achieved before because they had no way of understanding how important it was going to be. During the 1960 presidential campaign, there were 4 debates. The first debate was considered as one of the most significant debates in the campaign.
Good evening. The television and radio stations of the United States and their affiliated stations are proud to provide facilities for a discussion of issues in the current political campaign by the 2 major candidates for the presidency. The candidates need no introduction. The Republican candidate, Vice President Richard M. Nixon, and the Democratic candidate, Senator John F. Kennedy.
From this hour-long debate, news panelists from major television networks asked questions to each candidate about many nationwide issues. This format is present in recent presidential debates in which candidates, while attempting to appear presidential on national TV, revealed their political views and contradict the opponent's ideas. Then it was over. Everyone turned off their televisions, the candidates shook hands and left. Nearly no one had the knowledge of how this important debate was going to be. Yet, as the moment got closer to the election, more citizens started to understand how much the debates affected the public's polling and views. After watching Kennedy on TV, his presence dazzled people and young minors. In October of 1960, Kennedy took a tour to New York City after his first debate. According to New York Times, teens leaped into the air and hugged themselves at the sight of him. He was tanned and very calm on set. Nixon, on the other hand, was clearly sweating during the debate and refused the proper makeup. Citizens and media would often forget that he was hospitalized in August before the debates due to a serious infection. Kennedy was addressing crowds and gaining popularity during Nixon's hospitalization. As a result, the Republican nominee appeared to be unconfident, nervous, unshaven, and tired on television. It seemed even the candidates had no idea how their television appearance would have an impact on the debate. The majority of the people that saw the debate live on TV gave their opinions and thought that Kennedy had won. However, those who tuned in on the radio thought that Richard Nixon won, but most of them were minors. In the end, 43% of television viewers thought Kennedy won, whereas 23% thought that Nixon had won. The second of the four debates was held on October 7th. This time Nixon tried making a better impression on his audience by wearing makeup and a darker suit, but no one forgot how he appeared in that first debate.
So I think after the first debate, when the reviews for him were very negative and people commented on his appearance, he had been in the hospital, so he wasn't feeling very well. So he didn't really do anything special for the debates. He thought it was just like another thing that he had to do that day. And he realized afterwards that he really needed to step up his game.
So what happened in the election of 1960? Everyone thought it was going to be close, but nobody guessed that Kennedy would win 0.16% of the popular vote, making this election the closest election of the century. Kennedy also got 303 electoral votes in the race, which helped him take over the presidency. 57% of voters said their decision was greatly changed by the shift in the debate. It could be argued that Kennedy might have become president if it weren't for the television aspect of the debate. The power of television also impacted subsequent years. In 1964, Lyndon B. Johnson was the front runner and thought that a debate would only make him fall in the polls. As for Nixon, in 1968 and 1972, he finally won the presidency, but there were no presidential debates in those years. This may have been because Nixon learned his lesson after making mistakes in the 1960 debates. In fact, the next presidential debate after the 1960 ones took place 16 years later in 1976 with Republican nominee Gerald R. Ford and Democratic Jimmy Carter. Today, candidates still stand in front of the camera and news panelists still ask them questions, but after 1960, candidates had to be well prepared, including appearance, for any part of the debate. In fact, televised debates are now a critical part of the election process in over 80 other countries around the world. The election and perhaps the future could almost definitely have turned out differently if it weren't for the 1960 presidential debates. It was the first modern presidential campaign, and modern political campaigns have become the foundation of all elections through the act of communicating. The debates of 1960 were significant developments in American politics, and still today they influence the election process. President John F. Kennedy might have even said it himself. The network television debates between Mr. Nixon and myself have been a great service by the television industry to the American people. The legacy of the 1960 presidential debates will last forever.